All right, welcome to the Odometer. Today we've got a special guest. She's a Christian, she's a mom, she is an advocate for children, and she's a Texas Senator. Senator Paxton, thank you so much for coming today.
Well, thank you, Jay. I'm glad to be here. We made it worth the while, right? We went through perils and blacktop and all kinds of stuff.
You had a little bit of a roundabout, and then but we made it.
We sure did.
To the studio. So.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and we've talked about doing this for a little while, and I'm glad we were able to reconnect recently and then get something on the calendar.
So now you have been a Texas Senator since
2018.
2018.
Right.
Okay.
So my first session started in 2019, but I was elected in 2018.
Okay. So you kind of feeling like you got the groove, it's going.
It's interesting because we meet every other year, as you know, for 140 days. So we meet from January, usually through Memorial Day weekend. That usually kind of closes out the season. It depends on how the calendar falls. But, your first session, everything is new. And literally your first day on the floor, you didn't get a key to your office until that morning.
So what does that feel like? You show up and you're like,
yeah.
I'm a senator. And then what is there like somebody give you like a runaround, like here's the break room, here's the...
Well, so, one of the things that most of us do, we hire our staff in advance, but their state salary does not begin until we take office. I mean, that just is kind of how that works. And so, I know a lot of my staff, they came on and kind of started getting into the groove. I had a really experienced chief of staff who I was just so thankful. He knew the ropes. He'd served in the Senate as a staff member many times, and just really a knowledgeable person knew the people, knew the process, knew the ropes, right? Mm-hmm. And so, he had things ready for me to just step into, and, he helped me hire a great team. Mm-hmm. And of course, I've kind of got two teams. I've got a team in Austin at the Capitol, and then I've got the team that I have up here in the district. Okay. And so that's, Della and Meg are both up here, and so they work with our constituents a lot in person up here. And then for the most part, the staff in Austin is mostly policy staff.
Gotcha.
So, but yes, it's a very, what you call it, a hard startup, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a very abrupt thing. All of a sudden you are in, and so you're counting on having really good staff to have you prepared for things. Every day you're doing something you've never done before. Mm-hmm. And it's very exciting though, things like that, there's an excitement to it, and then there's like a stress to it, right? Kind of both of those at the same time, that tension.
Yeah. And it's constant.
It's constant, and it builds, right? But you're not off at all. You're on the whole time, the whole 140 days, and literally on camera for the most part, because almost everything we do is live streamed. So whether we're in committee or we're on the floor or whatever, and so. There's a lot to kind of get used to, but that first session, I felt like we had a great session, as a Senate, as a legislature, but I also was able to pass some great bills that very first session and then learn the process, right? Mm-hmm. And then one of the things that kind of happens with each passing session, you sort of start developing your lane, right? That the things that people come to you about this, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, when you get there, all the other current senators, they've already got their lane, right? Yep. And so that ain't gonna be your lane, no matter how much you like it.
You're not sliding over there.
No, there's no splitting, right? Like they do the motorcycles, right? There's none of that. So, For me though, I really kind of expected, having been a teacher and a school counselor for 20 years, we homeschooled, I taught, and we had our kids in public school, and I taught, and we had our kids in private school at different times. So I really anticipated that the bulk of what I would be working on would be education. I have been on the education committee from the very beginning, but it's been interesting. I'm also an adopted child.
That's where I wanted to go. I want to get back to the education in Texas
Yes.
right now, but take us back to New Braunfels.
Okay.
I know you've got an amazing adoption story, and I want everybody to hear that. So.
Well, you know what? Thank you. It is truly one of my favorite stories to tell, and it was always part of, I think, one of my favorite things about myself growing up was that I was an adopted child. So my birth mother was in college and got pregnant while she was in college, and the family decided that, you know, a baby needs a family, and so they placed me for adoption. It was a private adoption. My mom and dad, my adopted parents, picked me up the day after I was born. So I have been, you know, I was with my parents from the very beginning. My birthday is Valentine's Day, and my parents always told me that the store's decorated for my birthday. Okay, I believed them.
You believed it.
I believed them for a lot longer than I should have.
Last year? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and then, you know, then you fast forward when I had children. Of course, I told my children that the store's decorated for my birthday.
So continue
now I tell
on.
now I tell my
love it.
grandchildren that and everything. But
That's awesome.
But you know, it's a sweet day. That's you know, Valentine's Day. That's why my mom and dad named me Angela. So you know, it's interesting though. The word angel, the root of that, the meaning is messenger. And so that's always been a big part of how I've seen myself, especially as I got older and started thinking of things in spiritual terms, really, you know, as a young child. But, you know, I really do believe with all my heart that, number one, there are no accidents. No one is an accident. God has a purpose for every single person. We are built for that. He makes us for our purpose. And one of my favorite things when I was teaching and counseling and working with kids was helping them understand that it, you know, pay attention to what you're good at, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, what comes easy, what is difficult, what comes natural. Pay attention to those things because those are kind of a clue to your gifts and your talents, and that has a lot to do with how God made you and what He made you for. So, you know, but I knew that because my parents taught me that.
And you started going to church, and you were right away.
Yes,
that was your brought up that way.
My mom and dad were believers, and you know, I grew up going to church. I grew up in a little Baptist church. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night,
too.
and every night of the week when there was a revival. Right.
That's right. That's right.
I went to youth camp every summer. My parents were the parents that would like take their vacation to be chaperones on the trips that the youth would take, and I had really, I think, deliberate parents, intentional parents.
I like that word, intentional.
Yeah.
Because as a parent myself, you kind of have to remind yourself. It's not constantly like this time is fleeting. You've got to take what you need to do and intentionally do it. And
Right.
I love that word.
Well, and you know, none of us choose our parents, right?
Right.
None of us choose our parents.
Your parents chose you.
My parents chose me, right? And you know, parents do have some sort of choice in their children in a certain sense, but not who they are, right? And so, you know, they took a chance on me, right? They don't know anything about this baby, but they took a chance and they wanted to be parents, right? And they'd been praying for God to give them children, and they were not able to conceive, and so they had started thinking about adoption. And so anyway, that's kind of how all of that happened. And you know, I'm just really thankful. But I've thought about it many times. I mean, none of us choose our parents, but I couldn't have chosen any better than what the Lord gave me. But I was always very aware that the Lord had put me in my family manually, right? Not through the kind of the standard way that happens by birth.
And you knew that from the beginning? You don't remember not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't ever remember my parents sitting down with me and saying, we need to tell you something. However they did it, they just did it in a very natural way. I guess the same way, like if you think about it, most parents don't sit down and say, we need you to understand, we gave birth to you. Right. It's just something that somehow it comes into conversations, and you just kind of
always there.
It's a natural thing that you explain, but I think it was a really beautiful thing how my parents did it, however it was that they did, because it was never like some weird discovery or and I have talked to folks that are adopted that they have other stories like that, or they find out from a family member or something when later on, and of course that could be kind of a traumatic thing, because then it's like, well, is there something wrong with that because they kept it a secret, right? Secrets are hard. Are hard. Surprises are not, but secrets are hard.
That's right. Did you ever have a period where you questioned why would my mom have put me up for adoption? Was anything ever wrong with me? Or did you never really go? I talked to so many adopted kids and adults who they had a period where they struggled with that. Did you ever struggle with that?
No, I didn't. And I think, again, it has to do with how my parents taught me about who I was, right? And told me my story. And it was always, your birth mother, when I was old enough to understand that, she wasn't married, she was in college, and it makes sense. She loved you enough that she wanted you to have a mom and a dad, right? But I will tell you, I have a little brother who is also adopted. He's 2 years younger than me, and he did struggle with that. Like, why didn't my mother want me? And it was difficult. I've heard people talk about that dynamic, that sometimes it's more difficult for boys than for girls. Any given person, every person is their own case and everything. But for whatever reason, it made sense to me. And I think in my life too, this is just part of my personality. I have a lot of room for mystery. It's okay with me. So like, I was never the kid that at Christmas, I was like real curious what was in there, but I didn't like get up in the middle of the night and go and wrap the things and look and then wrap it back.
That's what I did.
See?
I had to know.
You're that guy. You're that guy. So,
but you're okay with that, and I love that.
Yeah, but people are just different. That's really my point.
Right.
And we all have strengths and weaknesses. We all have certain things that come easy to us, and certain things that we really have to work at. I remember my mom, my birth mom, or my adopted mom, but when I say mom, that's who I'm talking about. She was always a worrier. And I was never really a worrier, right? And it's almost just kind of a personality thing, right? So anyway, but I loved being adopted. It was one of my favorite things about myself growing up, because my parents always told me, we loved you, we chose you, we wanted you.
So you felt loved every step.
Absolutely. And
you have amazing parents.
My amazing parents. And my that my birth mother had loved me enough that she wanted me to have a family. And she wanted me to have a mom and a dad, right? So part of the story with this is, I grow up, my mom and dad, I mentioned they were very intentional. And I think another part of that, Jay, for them was that, they were always really aware they might not have been parents, right? The things that we kind of take for granted, we aren't necessarily intentional about. We don't think about it, right? Because it's like things are kind of supposed to be this way. I've thought about this with, like, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I was walking through the house barefoot, and I just was walking fast through the kitchen, and I hit my foot on a bar stool, like my toes, right? I think I broke something, okay?
Oh, yeah.
But at the time, I'm just like, ow, right? That really hurt, but I didn't do anything to it. And then a couple days later, I'm like, this still really hurts. And I have one daughter that's a nurse, and I'm like, what do I do? And she's like, well, it's probably not too late to at least, put some ice on it and elevate it and do that kind of stuff. So I did some of that, but I'm just now kind of getting over it, like not hurting every step, right? Like the Little Mermaid, right? Her feet felt like knives or whatever. That's kind of what I was feeling like with the one foot. But it's interesting, a little toe. When's the last time you thought about your little toe or even taking a step? What a blessing, right?
Yes.
But I'm kind of in this place where I'm like walking around and I'm like going, it feels I'm so thankful that my foot's not hurting now, right?
Yes.
And so the things, because it's supposed to be that way, but it won't be long. I will reacclimate to not thinking about that at all.
And that's life.
That's life. So, we have physical things that do that, but there are also, there are emotional things that happen in our lives. There are circumstances that happen in our lives. There are joys and tragedies, all of these things that come into our life and they disrupt the normal, right? And we have to adjust to that.
Yes.
And we have choices to make in that. We
Yes,
have choices to look to the Lord, to look to ourselves, to blame other people, to just
be that victim.
To be that.
It is a choice.
And we probably all do all of those at different times. But I'm thankful for my parents. They were, like I said, very intentional. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. That was really important to my parents. Baylor University, Sikkim Bears. I always wanted to go to Baylor. Actually, and my dad loved Baylor. I think that was why.
So that was kind of set in you early.
Yes, he loved Baylor. He loved Grant Taff. I don't know if you remember the
name,
coach.
But yeah.
And maybe some of your viewers will remember Grant Taff. But he was a strong Christian man and a great role model. My dad was real involved in helping sponsor Fellowship of Christian Athletes, FCA.
Oh, okay.
And I was an athlete in high school, and my dad helped start an FCA chapter at our school, and he loved Grant Taff. He had Grant come out and speak one time to our chapter, which was a kind of a big deal. And Neil Jeffrey, who later became a pastor but was a quarterback at Baylor, also just a great role model, Christian young man. And anyway, so my dad really loved Baylor because of all of those things.
Yeah.
Then as I got close to getting ready to go to college, I remember I was like, I want to go to Baylor. And I can remember watching my dad and realizing that he was going, oh my gosh, what have I done? I can't afford Baylor, right?
This was his doing.
Yes,
and now he's got
I did this to myself, right? But,
I love that.
But I went to Baylor on scholarship and financial aid, and my parents sacrificed a lot for me to go there.
You made it.
Yeah.
I want to skip forward a little bit to real quickly why on earth you would ever want to run for Texas Senator, but also that infamous run against Huffines.
Yeah. Infamous
I know
is a
that
good
probably
word, right?
seems a world away.
Thankfully.
But I recently sat down with the Huffine twins, and they spoke so kindly of you.
That's really nice.
He was like, you ran one hell of a race. She's wonderful. We love her. And I just thought that said so much because as much money as he spent, you still beat him. So what do you remember about that time of your life? It must have been absolutely crazy. How old were your kids? What do you remember when you think back all those years?
Well, the circumstances that kind of led to that were that Philip had, I guess, bought a house in the Senate district, I think it was in the Dallas County part of Richardson that was in Senate District 8.
Okay.
Most of which was at the time Collin County. We've drawn the lines a little bit since then, but
which there's certainly no strategy there, right?
Right. He lived in Highland Park and he bought a house. So anyway, that's a great thing.
Okay, yeah.
And then he announced that he was going to run. And actually Matt Shaheen who's still is a state rep, announced that he was going to run. And so that was the race that was shaping up. And I was a school counselor at that time, and My husband was the Attorney General of Texas, currently still is. And, I'd been involved in politics because I'd helped him in his races. And
so you knew how it worked, what was involved, the drama of a race. And,
yes.
Yeah.
I had as front row a seat to what it looks like to run yourself as you could have, right? Like I'd been involved, I had been involved in all of those conversations from, him running as a state rep, then a state senator, the seat that I actually now hold, and then statewide as Attorney General. So
did he lean on you a lot for support, as many men do with their wives?
I think it was something that we did together. We prayed about it together. We decided it together. That was how we had always done that. And so, I tell people all the time, not in my wildest dreams or darkest nightmares did I ever think I would run for office. Because I knew too much.
What was the light bulb that was like, I'm going to do it? Or was it a slow?
No, it was abrupt.
Okay.
It was abrupt. Matt Shaheen dropped out of the race.
Okay.
So Philip announced that he was going to, I think, spend $2 million on the race, which is a lot to spend. At the time, that's a very large, amount of money to drop on a Senate race. And so actually Ken called me. I was at school at the back of the cafeteria where we were having chapel. And I was at Legacy Christian Academy. So I was the school counselor and I was kind of an assistant principal, and then I ran the soundboard during, you wear a lot of hats, right, at a small school.
Yeah.
But anyway, he texted me and said, will you run for the Senate? And I was like, what is that,
Is
right?
this a joke?
That's like out of nowhere. Anyway, I'm like, sure, I'm not doing anything, or whatever. I think something snarky.
Free time,
Yeah. But anyway, I called him back later in the afternoon. He goes, well, will you? And I said, well, I what? He goes, run. And I said, something must have happened in the universe because this doesn't make sense. And he told me, he said,
you just said there's no mistake.
He said, Matt dropped out. And I was like, no. And I said, there's got to be someone else. And I kind of went through with him all of the people that I thought about that already were in elected office, that were conservative, that were here, that lived here in Collin County, right? And that would, that conservatives would trust, that the grassroots would know and trust. And I went through these people. I went through a list of 6 or 7 people, and Ken's like, I already talked to them, they won't do it. I already talked to them, they won't do it. And the basic reason was everyone was like, we can't compete with that kind of money.
Yeah.
And he said, I think you could win. I think you could win. And I said, that is the most desperate idea I've ever heard in my life. And he goes, no, he said.
But something instantly kind of intrigued you?
No, it did not.
No. Even if you're honest, you were not like, ooh, that
no.
was. Okay, you were.
No. And I said, he said, think about it. You've got great name ID. You can raise enough money. You don't have to have the most money, but you can raise enough if you spend it smart. And he said the grassroots already know you and they trust you. They know who you are.
Yeah. You'd been out there with them.
All that time, not realizing what I was setting myself up for.
You were campaigning for yourself and you didn't know it. Well, in a sense.
In a sense, that was true. And I haven't thought about this in a while, but that reminds me of what happened that weekend for me. So how old were my kids, you had asked? So that weekend, so this was on a Friday that we had this conversation. That weekend was the weekend that I was taking our youngest daughter to college.
Okay.
So I wasn't going to have kids at home.
So timing was looking good.
So the timing was not an obstacle. I will say, if I still had a kid at home, I would never have run. That just wouldn't have worked for me to have, even a kid in high school. They can feed themselves, they can dress themselves. That's just not healthy.
But many do it. Some do it, I guess.
Some do. I mean, to me, that just is not how I would want to spend the last year of my daughter being home from high school, right? Or in high school, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so, I remember the last thing Ken told me was, he said, well, pray about it. And I said, okay, I will pray about it. Because it's kind of hard to say, no, I'm not even going to pray about this. Right? That's a bad sign on you.
You knew this was coming to you for a pretty strong reason, I'm assuming.
I realized this. This is what I realized. No one else was going to run.
You knew that.
That was the thing that was kind of the baseline, was if I didn't run, no one else was going to run. And so, and then we would have someone that really wasn't from Collin County. We would be the largest county that didn't have an indigenous senator, if you think about it that way. That's not really from there,
Yeah.
And that's something that I had so appreciated about our other elected officials. I just felt like we had something special in Collin County.
Yeah.
And again, this was in 2017. So anyway, I said, okay, I will pray about it. So Saturday morning, I woke up. This was the end of the second week of school. So I'd gone back to school at Legacy.
Okay.
And so on Saturday morning, I remember I woke up, and the story that was like in my mind when I woke up was Moses at the burning bush, right? And you remember Moses has this conversation with God. He's like, I'm not the guy. Because he's like, I want you to go back, and I want you to tell Pharaoh, let my people go.
I can't speak in front of these people.
That's what he said. He was like, I can't speak. I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
And he basically was saying, God, I'm not equipped. And what God responded to Moses with was, you don't have to be good at everything. I've put the people around you that you need. Your brother Aaron, your sister Miriam. I have a team around you. And I realized I had a team around me because Ken's team was already operating. It was a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And I had those folks that I could step into that could help me do the things and learn the things that I needed, right? Okay, so I wake up Sunday morning, and the story was the story of Esther that was on my heart when I woke up. And what most people remember about the story of Esther is that very famous line, for such a time as this, right?
That just came into your head.
Mordecai, her cousin, goes to her, so she's the queen at this point, but he goes to her and he says, a terrible thing is going to happen to our people. And she says, I can't do anything about that. And Mordecai says, why do you think the Lord put you here? Right? If you don't, who's going, someone else, God will go find someone else, but you are here. Maybe the Lord has put you here for such a time as this. And I just realized, all of those years that I had been campaigning for someone else.
Yes.
Right? That I had been learning things.
To do the job.
And I had been building relationships. And I had been developing skills myself, right? And so, anyway, I'm like, okay. I wake up Monday morning, and the story that was just in my mind when I woke up was Isaiah. And, the Lord comes to Isaiah at the very beginning, and he tells him some things he wants to do. And Isaiah says, I can't do that. I'm not worthy of that. I'm a man of unclean lips. And anyway, and the Lord actually in this vision, I think an angel takes a tong and from a fire, and it's a burning coal, and he touches his lips and he says, I have sent you. And then Isaiah says, here I am, Lord, send me. And I remember sitting up in bed, and I just said, here I am, Lord, send me.
God had his hand on this. It was obvious to you, I'm imagining, like, okay, I get the message.
Well, you know what happened was I was like, I knew God was calling me to go and run and to try and to do my best. I didn't feel like God promised me, you're going to win this too. Yes.
But you were heavily feeling this is right.
I felt called to do it.
Called to do it.
And I walked into my office at school that morning. So this is the beginning of the third week of school, right? So everything's still kind of crazy. But I went into my principal's office and I said, "Hey, do you have a minute?" And he said, "Come in, it looks serious." And he said, "Sit down." And he said, "What's on your mind?" And I said, "I think I'm supposed to quit my job. I think I'm supposed to run for the Texas Senate." And he looked at me and he goes, "Everything was fine on Friday. What happened?"
What on earth happened?
Right. And I kind of told him, and he goes, "Well, before you say anything else, I always thought you were supposed to do something like this. Go change the world."
I love
So
that.
go change the world was what I had on my office wall. And that's what I talk to kids about.
Yeah.
Right? Go change the world. Understand what God is doing with you. He's made you to be good at certain kinds of things. He's put you in a certain place. He's put you in a certain family in this place and time, and he's developing you into something. And it matters for now, how you operate now, but it's also preparing you for a future. And every day I was sitting there telling kids this. And I cannot tell you, Jay, how many times over these few years I have said to myself something that I used to tell kids, and I would tell myself, I'd be sitting on the Senate floor, and I would remind myself about it. But
That's amazing.
It's funny, I remember one of the things that I said many, many times, people say, well, you don't have policy experience or whatever. And
a million reasons why.
Reasons why. And these were usually people that were not supporting me, right? But I would just say, I think working with middle school kids is great preparation for politics.
Because that's about the mentality of it. Now, you mentioned earlier, and I can't help think of this, is those stub the toe moments, which you mentioning that I will always use that, because things you never thinking about, when it's hurt, when it hits, and you come through that gratitude is so strong. Even when you've had the flu for 4 days, to get up and breathe, I feel so great. And you're so thankful. And we need those reminders. I watched the whole impeachment trial. I watched every minute of it. I was enthralled for so many reasons. I couldn't believe it was happening. But I remember thinking about you so much through all of that, as your family basically was being attacked. And there you were on the Senate floor, basically mouth shut zip, because you couldn't really do much with all of that going on. People making accusations, you had taken money to redo your kitchen, the whole shebang. I thought of you every day with your armor on, getting up, walking on that Senate floor, and taking that. And I thought, what is it like when you go home at night, ready to know you got to go back tomorrow? What was that time of your life like?
That was a difficult time. I think it was, as I look back on it, for me, it was a purifying time for me. One of the things that I remember, because on the Senate floor, there are 31 of us. We all have the same power. We have the power of our vote. And so to walk on that floor and not have that.
Your voice.
Right, was an adjustment, right? And it was something my colleagues had chosen and imposed upon me. Not all of them. They didn't do it. They didn't do it unanimously. But it was the majority. And so I remember, as I was just kind of processing that before the trial started, because we had a walk through a couple of days before the trial began. And I remember just the feeling of, it was just a surreal experience to walk on the floor and realize that I didn't have the same voice that I always had before.
Did you feel all eyes were on you constantly, everywhere you went,
I sort of was aware of that. I didn't spend a lot of my time thinking about that. But I did know this. I wanted to be true to myself, and I want to be true to the Lord. And I wanted to operate in spirit and truth. And
instead of hate and anger.
absolutely, absolutely. And so, there were things that came out during the trial, facts that came out during the trial. There were also things that were alleged as facts that were not facts.
There
were other things that were facts that came out.
Which was so interesting that no one really could prove. I kept waiting for the bomb to drop. They didn't have one.
Right. But there were other very difficult things for me to hear emotionally. That came out during the trial.
Were you leaning on God very heavily?
Very, very heavily. Because I had asked the Lord, I said, you show me, I want to represent you when I go on that floor. More than I want to represent myself, more than I want to represent Kent, I want to represent you, and I want to operate in your spirit. And I remember one of the things, as I was like even just kind of wrestling with that whole thing about not having the voice that I always have when I'm there. I remember I was praying, and the Lord, I feel like the Lord just impressed on me, I don't want you to have that power right now. And I want you to feel the powerlessness of not having that power right now. Because I want you to lean into another power. I want you to lean into another power. And when we have things, right, when we have things to lean on, we lean on them. And we might not even realize how much we lean on certain kinds of things until they're stripped away, right? Or until it's that toe, right, that you can't put weight on because it's painful, right? And you have to make some decisions. But, I felt like the Lord said, the power I want you to lean on, I want you to pray. I want you to pray. And I'll tell you, Jay, I hadn't really thought about this. I prayed many times when I was on the Senate floor, many, many times.
The decisions are affecting millions.
Yes. So it's not like something that I have approached without prayer ever. But what I realized in that moment and have carried forward from that time is that my vote is not the greatest power I have on the Senate floor. And it's something that God calls me to exercise responsibly. But the greatest power I have is that I'm leaning into God's will for my life, which is, in a certain sense, we all have a similar destiny if we are in Christ, and that is that the character of Christ be formed in us. And that is my greatest power, is as I'm leaning in and I'm cooperating and surrendering to the power of God in my life, whatever that is. And sometimes it has been some very difficult things. Things I would never have dreamed I would have to deal with, things I don't want, I don't want. But God is using these things, and He is shaping the character of Christ. And at the end of the day, isn't this what it is all about? It isn't about, in my opinion, and I think this is scriptural, it isn't about the things we accomplish. It is about who we are.
And it's easy to confuse the two.
Well, it's very easy in a performance-oriented society. It's very easy to do that.
The world you live in, I can't even imagine.
Well, it's easy to do anywhere, but it's very prevalent in politics, right? But you know what? If we are who we are supposed to be, the things we are supposed to do will flow from that. But if we are not who we are supposed to be, we can maybe keep that facade intact for a while, but it falls apart. It falls apart. So it was an incredibly, it was purifying in the sense of refining, right? I had my dear friend June Hunt. I don't know if you're familiar with June. She is a lady that has a long-standing radio ministry, counseling ministry called Hope for the Heart.
Okay.
And, June has been such an encouragement to me. And one of the things that, she has said to me many, many, many times, and she's said to many other people, is there is always a reason that people are the way they are. And how we come through life's trials, right? Whether we you hear people say you can choose to be bitter or to be better, right?
Yes.
But we can't be better on our own, right? That's something that the Lord has to do in us, but we have to lean into that. We have to choose it.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that I've been surrounded by godly friends, a lot of godly women. For the most part, I've been pretty careful to make sure that my close people are women.
Yeah.
Because I think that matters. That matters a lot.
Why do you feel that matters?
I think that people can do things they're going to regret in intense situations, in working relationships even, that will compromise their integrity. It has been important to me to protect my marriage as much as I could. And that's just one of the safeguards I have built in. And, I think it matters. You've got to have godly people around you. And I think for women, it matters to have godly women around you so you don't introduce extra temptation that comes from close, intimate conversations about things,
It's
right?
guarding the heart.
Guarding your heart. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for Della. Della's been
She keep you in line.
She does a lot. I always joke around that she's my adult supervision,
We all need one of those.
But she's been also just great spiritual support for me as well. And, I think that's an important thing because, I want to leave a legacy of character for my children.
Yes.
And my
I know
grandchildren.
they'd be so proud of you.
Well, I'm proud of them. I've said many times I'd be happy if when I grow up I could be like any of them,
And how great is that?
Yeah.
Senator, I know you've got a little bit of a music background, so
Yeah.
I'm going to spring a surprise on
A
you.
little bit.
No, you're great. I happen to have a guitar over here. And a lot of people don't know you have led worship in churches. You play piano. You just played something for us back there. But take us out on something, will you?
Oh my
I
gosh.
have totally sprung this on you, but
Are you tuned?
we're tuned. Good as I can tune it. How's that?
You have a pick?
I don't. Not with me. I should have grabbed one.
Hey, everybody. Everybody sing. I've spent a lot more time on the piano lately. I got myself a grand piano. And I spent a lot of time doing that, but I used to lead worship at my church, and it's a wonderful way to spend time. I enjoy, if you have time by yourself, and you're probably not in the season of life like I am, but I do have pockets of time by myself, and there's maybe almost nothing I enjoy more other than FaceTiming with my grandkids than sitting down at the piano, and I can sing, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Earlier the song I was playing was "Shout to the Lord," right?
Yes.
And I can do that in my house, and it doesn't bother anybody. It doesn't matter what time of the day or night it is, and anyway, but yeah, music has been a big part of my life. To me, singing is a type of prayer and meditation, and the opportunity that I've had for many years to do that myself, just on my own, but also to lead other people in worship, whether it was Sunday school or church or college group or whatever. I have to give a shout out to my then hippie Uncle Curtis. He texted me actually this morning, asked how I was doing. But thanks, Uncle Curtis, for buying a new guitar and giving me your old one when I was going to college. So anyway.
You know a little Amazing Grace?
Let's see, what's a good key? You gonna sing?
I'll sing with you.
Let's see. If I don't want to get something where I can't hit the high note.
let's not start too high.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I learned a long time ago? So I've sung the national anthem at a lot of events and some sporting events, like for the Rangers and everything, but the Mavericks also. But one of the things, usually you do that a cappella.
Yeah.
And so there are two things I learned singing a cappella. Never start the national anthem too high.
Or you're
toast.
It's over.
And never start the Lord's Prayer too low, because there's a low note. It happens pretty quick too. Ask me how I know.
You've been there.
So let's see. I'm trying to think of a good key.
Maybe.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.
I love it.
You did grow up Baptist because you can harmonize.
I was with the Baptist choir every Sunday, like you said, every Wednesday.
I was too. And I realized later in my life I was really a soprano, second soprano, I guess. But I grew up singing alto, and I was always thankful for that because I learned how to harmonize.
Yeah.
And there really aren't that many kinds of places where people sing together. But church and patriotic events.
Yeah. It's comes from that same place.
Yeah.
What we care about, what makes us who we are. Well, Senator Paxton, thank you so much. I wanted to talk about your House Bill 451, what you're doing for the kids. We didn't get there, maybe next time, but I think
Let's do it.
you are a strong, wonderful woman, and I mean that from my heart. And so many have watched you through the years, through the good times, the bad times. You just keep on chugging along, and I want to see what you keep doing in the future.
Well, thank you.
But it was wonderful talking to you, and your spirituality and your strength has meant something to me today, and I think it's going to mean something to our viewers. So
Well, thank you.
we'll talk about bills later.
We'll visit again.
We'll visit again.
We'll visit again. As you see, I enjoy talking with you. And anyway, I hope our conversation is an encouragement to someone who is maybe going through something difficult that is maybe unexpected or unwanted even. And I would just encourage whoever is in that kind of a spot that God has not quit seeing you. And in fact, God is doing something that maybe he can't do any other way except for this difficult thing. But his purpose in it is not to destroy you. His purpose in it is to show you the hope and the future that he has for you. So hang in there.
I love that.
Get good people around you, people that love God and that can speak the truth, spend time in the Word. Don't skip that, and listen. And do what he says.
All right. Senator Paxton, thank you again. Guys, we will see you next week. And thank you so much.
Thank you.